The weekly U.S. unemployment figures just out. More than 3.8 million Americans have filed for unemployment benefits last week. Our U.S. Bureau Chief Simon Marks joins us now from Washington, D.C. Simon, so these numbers comparably lesser to the record 6.8 million jobless benefit claims about a month ago. Are we seeing perhaps maybe a glimpse of hope in the U.S. labour market now then?
Well, not very much, Glenda. These numbers that have just been released by the Department of Labour here in Washington, D.C. are actually worse than the forecasters were expecting. Another 3.8 million Americans signed on for unemployment for the first time last week. The expectation was that the number was going to be lower than that by about 300,000 or 400,000. There is a lag in the way in which some of these numbers are being reported. And so there is an expectation in the weeks that lie ahead, we may see these numbers begin to recede. But nonetheless, more than 30 million people in the United States now claiming unemployment benefits on a continuing basis. And analysts just yesterday, after those awful GDP figures were published, were predicting that the unemployment rate by the end of May, beginning of June here in the United States could be at 20%. Now, as the economy in various parts of the country slowly begins to flex its muscles and reopen, there will clearly be the opportunity for some of those workers to be hired back by the enterprises that have let them go. But, you know, the United States has shed jobs at an extraordinarily rapid clip. Over the last 2 months, those jobs will not be recreated at anything like the same degree of speed as they were lost. So the United States is going to be hunkering down, like so many other countries all over the world, dealing with substantial numbers of unemployed people, analysts say, for many months to come.
And Simon, China is a key player in the US economy as it is around the world. But Mr. Trump, or President Trump, has pointed the finger at Beijing for meddling with his re-election bid. Trade wars notwithstanding, since the pandemic has sort of taken center stage. But this poses a problem for Mr. Trump, doesn't it?
Well, look, I mean, as I think as you were just talking about with Olivia, I think it is increasingly clear that Donald Trump, between now and November, as he heads towards what he hoped will be his re-election on November the 3rd of this year, is increasingly going to play the China card, whether it's blaming China for covering up coronavirus, he says, for months, or accusing China of trying to meddle in America's election by sowing the seeds for his defeat this November. It's absolutely apparent that we're going to be hearing from President Trump and other Republican candidates seeking election to their offices in Congress. We're going to be hearing from all of them consistently about China throughout the rest of the year. It undoubtedly is going to put a tremendous strain on the relationship between Washington and Beijing, particularly given all the trade issues that are at stake and the president's desire for China to make good on the promises that he says they made to purchase large amounts of America's agricultural product, for example. But look, politics is going to be the dominant factor here through until November. And within that election campaign, President Trump, I think, is making it absolutely clear that holding China accountable, whatever the actual facts behind that turn out to be, will be a central plank of his re-election strategy.
Joe, thanks very much for that update. Simon Marks speaking to us from Washington, D.C.